Regardless of the number of people who care about you or your loved one's medical crisis, keeping the support system up to date with the latest developments takes a tremendous amount of time, energy, and effort. We chose to use a platform called CaringBridge throughout the course of my mom's treatment. It's free and it's blog-based, so you register a page for whomever is going through the medical crisis. And then you can post updates, which can include text and pictures. There's a comment section. So anyone who subscribes to it gets a notification when there's an update. And then you can also get notifications whenever there's a new comment. The platform can be viewed in a browser, but there's also dedicated apps for both iPhone and Android. So it made it a really good universal way to push out information to the support system, especially considering that given the age range of my mom and her friends and her loved ones, there are a lot of people who are boomers and above who are really invested in my mom's care. And so this was a very user-friendly approach to making sure that everyone stayed up to date. My sister Alicia, who's the Googler in the family, was the one who found CaringBridge and initially set it up after my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. She was the main poster as my mom went through her chemotherapy regimen called RCHOP, but I did do a few guest posts, and of course they're very writerly and descriptive and darkly funny at times. I put a lot of time and energy into it. It was very stupid. It was my way of showing that I was caring and contributing because I wasn't doing a lot of the hands-on caregiving at the moment. However, when I relocated back to Kansas to be a primary caregiver for my mom, I took over the full reins of the CaringBridge and soon realized that it's not particularly fun to keep everyone updated. So all that fluff and entertainment went out the window, and I got real utilitarian. In November of 2020, when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma, I opted to create a WhatsApp group instead of creating a CaringBridge for one main reason. Most of the people in my support system were my age and already were using WhatsApp, so it wouldn't require them to create a different account or download a different app. And it was also very cross-platform oriented. So given where technology was at the time, group threads were kind of a mess when you had a mixture of both iPhone and Android devices. So WhatsApp was much more preferable because it was streamlined across all platforms. The unique qualities of a support system will kind of dictate what path you end up taking for the methodology you use to keep everyone updated during a medical crisis. But one thing remains the same across any platform. Keeping people updated during the good times can be annoying. Keeping people updated during the bad times can be a complete nightmare. The times when things are the toughest are also the times when people are the most thirsty for information and updates, which does not mix well for either the primary caregiver or the person who's going through it. The last thing you want to do after a really tough day is to log onto a device and start typing away about what went wrong, how bad you feel, what the next grim steps are in the process. And it's just like pulling teeth at that point. But you feel obligated to do it. It's a necessity in a lot of cases because otherwise you get blown up privately about what's going on. So you know you have to slog it out and just do it. There were so many moments as a caregiver for my mom and then through my own cancer treatment where the last thing in the world I wanted to do was talk about or update anyone on what was happening. It just felt like pulling teeth at that point to have to describe in great detail all the terrible things that I was experiencing or I was witnessing. That's what I'm getting at in the conversation that I have with Lindsay on July 31st in my book, Losing Linda May, a Cancer Caregiving Memoir, because she has been distant from all the immediate activity that's going on through my mom's treatment. And she's been the reader of the CaringBridge and has been digesting the information that we're posting and the pictures that we're posting. But that is not the complete story because the person who has to write the post about what's going on is likely not going to want to go into the nitty-gritty of the depressing details. It's a terrible position to have to relay that information because not only do you know it's going to bum out everyone in the support system, but it also reminds you of the grim state that you're currently in. That's why a lot of times throughout the course of my mom's treatment, I just really put off updating the CaringBridge. And I know that is really selfish because there were so many people in my mom's support system who were so desperate for information about what was going on. But as the person who was right beside my mom throughout that experience, I just felt like they were outsiders anyway. They couldn't do anything about the circumstance. I couldn't do anything about the circumstances, and I was right beside her. So it didn't feel so imperative to keep everyone up to date when I knew that it didn't matter. Nothing from afar was going to miraculously help my mom, despite all of the thoughts and prayers that would always be commented on the Caring Bridge. We also talk about how the direct outreach, on top of that, broader support system level outreach, can also be such a burden to have to respond to at all times, because it's whenever you or your loved one is popping into the minds of the people of your support system and they're thinking about you in this moment, so they reach out, whereas you're living your reality, it's your every moment. And so that just sporadic outreach can be really challenging to navigate because you feel obligated to respond. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to leave people on red, but oftentimes you're repeating the exact same thing. Like I would end up copying and pasting text messages at that point because people would just routinely ask me the exact same questions over and over again. And they don't have any awareness of that. They're not seeing my messages log. They're just imagining that they're the only one who cares in this moment about whatever is happening. So my advice for people who are going through a medical crisis or who are caregivers for a loved one who's going through a medical crisis is set firm boundaries and expectations. Trust me, they won't be fully adhered to. They weren't when I tried to do it, but they will make a big difference overall. For example, I banned my support system from asking me, how are you feeling or how are you doing? Instead, I told them just to share updates from their lives and we could just have a nice normal dialogue instead of trudging through all the shit that I was going through, unless I wanted to bring that up because I needed their help or advice or support. But otherwise, we could exist in this world where I didn't have to just constantly be reliving my trauma, because when you are going through a medical crisis, it can just feel like your entire life revolves around that. And I got so bored of giving people my updates. I wanted to hear about them and what was going on in their lives, because it would, most of the time was a lot better than what was going on in my life. Having just those constant glimmers of life and normality was so much more beneficial to me in those moments than just constantly being prodded for information. My advice to everyone in the support system is to truly listen to what the needs of the individual who's going through the medical crisis are, along with what their caregivers need, and don't go beyond that. And also, if there are updates being posted to a broader level system, do not ask for more information or more clarifying information. The person who is writing those posts is doing so intentionally. They might be leaving things out, and that's for good reason. Don't press further than that. You will get the update when it's ready for you. The people who are going through the medical crisis are having a tough enough time as it is and don't need any other distractions and outreach and being bombarded with messages. Also, if the person who's going through the medical crisis or their caregivers give specific marching orders about what they need or want when it comes to communication, just listen. I know it can feel awkward and uncomfortable to not ask things like, how are you feeling or how are you doing? But if someone is telling you not to ask those questions, just don't ask those questions, and don't find a workaround and just ask some other type of question that's exactly the same. Most importantly, please keep in mind that posting updates and responding to outreach all require time and energy and effort for people who are going through a medical crisis or who are caregivers for someone who's going through a medical crisis. And so if you don't get a response really quickly, or if the posts don't come fast enough, please do not reach out to ask for more information. And don't get offended when you get a really short or terse response, because the person on the other end is likely struggling and it is hard for them to communicate about what is going on. They're not doing it to you intentionally. It is not a slight directly against you. Just hang tight, the communication will come, and be respectful. Tomorrow, August 1st, I'll be uploading a video about what gets posted to social media during a medical crisis. So hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to the book is in the description, and I will see you all then.